This is our functional fitness Friday with guided breathing session. So we're going to be working through our warm-up. This afternoon will be our ham sweep with a lunge and a shoulder push-up. So I'll be showing you guys how to do all of that. Then we're going to go through our glute bridges, air squats, prone overhead press into our push-ups, leg raises, bird dogs, finishing off with some plank and a single leg balance for our workout. And then we're going to have a little bit of a cool down. We're going to get into some stretching and some mobility and finish off with a little bit of guided breathing. So getting things started here, we're going to start with our warm up, going into our hamstring sweeps to start. So bring one foot out forward, pointing the heel into the ground and bringing our toes up towards us. We're going to reach back behind our hips, sweeping, pressing those fingertips down as far as they'll go, and standing all the way up to tall. Reaching back, sweeping through, and standing up nice and tall. Staying on that same side, getting a little bit deeper and deeper each time. Popping up. And switching sides, getting our other heel down, reaching down through the hamstrings and sweeping up. Getting nice big movement through the hip, all the way down the back of the leg and standing back up tall each time. We'll go one more here and done. Good. This next one, we're going to do a kneeling lunge and reach. So coming down onto one knee here with our other leg bent at 90 degrees. We're going to lunge this forward knee out over the toe, shifting our hips forward. So by keeping ourselves nice and tall, sucking belly button to spine, keeping our shoulders over our hips and not rounding forward too much or rounding this way, but staying nice and tall and shifting those hips forward. We get a much bigger stretch through the front of the hip there, and we're not putting stress onto our lower back by rounding out. So getting a nice big stretch through the front of the hip, keeping that torso nice and tall. And returning back out, switching sides, bringing that knee out over the toe, lunging forward, keeping our torso tall over the hips, spine nice and aligned. Trying to drive those hips forward, stretching out the front there. And coming back. Very good. Next up, we've got our shoulder push-up. So we're going to stay with our knees down on the ground, and we're going to bring our hands down as well. Now, just like we've done those shoulder retractions where we're pulling our shoulders behind, we're going to do that same movement with our hands on the ground and adding a little bit of weight over the chest. So here, I'm just going to pull those shoulders back and behind like I'm squeezing that orange, keeping the elbows locked out. And then I'm going to drive my chest back up, pressing my hands away from the ground, getting my shoulders pulled away, dropping that chest back down, squeezing that orange in the middle of the back with the shoulder blades, and then driving the chest back up and away, pulling the spine up towards the ceiling, lowering down, keeping our belly button stuck towards the spine, core is nice and tight. We're not rounding out the back, just moving the chest up and down between those two positions. And pressing away. Good. All right. Now that we got our hips and our shoulders nice and warmed up, we're going to go into our workout here. First thing we're going to start with is going to be our glute bridges. So flipping over onto our back, getting our feet on the floor. We're gonna lay flat, pull our lower back down into the ground, engage our abs, suck at that belly button to spine, and driving the hips up through the heels, creating that nice flat line from shoulder through the hips into the knees, driving those heels up into the ground and lowering the hips down nice and slow, feeling that tap at the bottom and driving straight back up, holding up at the top, creating that nice flat even connection, shoulders through hips to knees, and lowering down nice and slow, giving a tap, coming back up. Trying to be nice and steady, trying to work out all of that shake, get nice and strong, then relax down. Last one, driving up, getting those hips up into the air, and lowering down. Good. Next up, we've got our air squats. So getting up onto our feet, gonna have our feet about hip width apart. We're gonna drive those knees back, or knees forward, hips coming back, coming down, popping back up. Getting a little bit of the movement pattern down, nice and slow. Then once you get your feeling, pick up pace a little bit, go a little bit faster. Getting those hips down, keeping the weight over the midpoint of the foot, belly button nice and tucked in, torso tall. Move it nice and quick. Couple more here. And done. Good. Next up, we're going to go into our prone overhead press, getting our shoulders and our back nice and firing here. So, putting our hands right next to our chests, right by the armpits, we're going to pick our hands up, come out to a 90-degree, chest comes up, and extending out overhead, pointing the fingertips straight over the head, nice flat, and then pulling those elbows back down and wide. All the time, squeezing that orange in the middle of the back with the shoulder blades. Working through some overhead pressing. Getting that range of motion. Nice and engaged here. Couple more. And relax. Good. Next up, we have our push-up. So either on our knees or with our feet extended out, we're going to get our hands below the shoulders and go nice and slow. Same with the air squats, kind of finding our form, lowering down and driving back up. Nice and even. And then once we find our form, picking up the pace a little bit, trying to get some speed through the push-up. Really starting to work that chest. Keeping that belly button sucked to spine. Nice tight core. And done. Good. All right. Next up, we're going into our leg raises. So flipping over onto our back, we're going to get our feet extended out. Hands underneath the hips. We're going to pull that lower back into the ground, suck the belly button to spine, and feet come up and slowly lowering down. If you're having trouble with the feet being extended all the way out, you can fold the knees, start working on keeping that lower back pulled down as you bring the knees up as high as they can get. Really pulling those thighs in towards the chest, keeping the hips and the lower back down on the ground. Nice and slow. A few more here. And done. Good. All right, next up, we've got our bird dogs. So a little bit of a breather exercise, but still gonna focus on that core engagement, that stability, that control. So we're gonna get both hands down on the ground with our knees, creating a nice tabletop form, sucking the belly button to spine. From here, we're gonna extend the hand and foot out, creating a nice flat line from toe to fingertip, stabilizing between both the knee and the hand. Nice connected pose, holding up at the top, finding that stability through and through, and lowering back down, extending out, creating that connection, using those abdominals muscles to stabilize, pressing the ground away through the knee and the hand, extending that connection from fingertip to toe, and lowering back down. Very good. Next up, we've got our plank. So we're gonna go bring our forearms down to the ground, extending the feet out behind us, getting our hips nice and level with the shoulders, sucking that belly button in, driving the ground away, using those core connected stabilizing muscles we just found with the push-up and the bird dogs, using all of those to lock in here, holding us up. A few more seconds. And relax. Very good. All right, starting back at the top, we've got our glute bridges. So flipping over onto the back, we're gonna lay flat with our feet on the ground, so knees bent up in the air. From here, we're gonna drive our weight into the heels, bringing the hips up, holding a nice flat line from shoulder through the hips to the knees, holding up at the top, and slowly lowering down, trying to get that back flat, tap on the ground, and come back up. Holding and lowering down, getting onto the ground, tapping, and coming up. Lowering down, got our last one, and popping up. And lowering back down. Nice job. All right. Next up, we've got our air squats. So getting our feet about hip width apart, starting off our reps nice and slow, lowering down, getting those knees out over the toes, hips back, and driving up. Weight over the midpoint of the foot. Starting nice and easy, finding our form. Once we get our form, we start picking up the pace a little bit. Get things moving a little bit faster. Keeping our torso nice and tall. Belly button sucked in. Few more here. And rest. Good. Next up, we're going to go into our prone overhead press. So laying flat down onto the ground. We're going to bring our hands right below the shoulder by the armpit. And bringing our hands and chest up, elbows to 90 degrees. and extending out overhead, pointing those elbows down towards the hips, and extending out wide. Keeping that orange squeeze through the back the whole time. Keeping that chest up off the ground. A few more. And rest. Good. All right, next up, we've got our push-ups. So hands beneath the shoulders with either knees down or feet extended back. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to start off nice and slow with the air squats and then pick up the pace there towards the end. All right, so getting those knees or that chest up over hands, lowering down, nice and slow, finding our form. Once we got our form, start pressing, getting a little bit of speed. Nice, even press through both hands. Almost there. And done. Whew, those are challenging. All right, next up, we have our leg raises. So flipping over onto our back, we're going to get our feet extended out, laying flat on the ground, hands underneath the hips, pulling the lower back down into the ground and sweeping the feet up, getting nice and flat, and lowering down, going back and forth. Nice even pace. Almost there, a few left. And done. Good. Next up, we have our bird dogs. So getting onto our hands and knees, hands directly below the shoulders. We're going to extend our hand and leg out, opposite sides, connecting hand and toe, all the way through. Nice flat line, holding up at the top. And lowering back down and extending back out, creating that connection from hand to knee and finger to toe, stabilizing and connecting all the way through. And lowering back down. All right, last but not least, we're going into our plank. So forearms down to the ground. We're going to extend our feet back, driving the ground away, pressing through our forearms, driving the shoulders up. Sorry, I can't think very well. Got tired. Getting that belly button sucked into spine, hips nice and level. Focusing in here for the last 15 seconds. Driving the ground away. Almost there. Holding. Nice, strong plank. And down. Very good. I don't know about you guys, but I'm shaking. I'm out of breath here. All right, just about time to start our stretch and cool down. Give us some nice relaxation, try and calm us down a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is hop into our hurdler stretch, pulling that foot back by the hip, folding the knee back. I'll show you on this side. So bending one leg like this, folding back, and then gently, slowly lowering your back towards the ground. Either stay here on your elbows or up on your hands, or try and go all the way down, stretching through the floor. Try and make sure you're getting that heel as close to the hip as you can. Closer it is, the bigger of a stretch you'll get. And you want to try and keep those muscles nice and in line. Starting to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. In those nice deep breaths all the way through the stomach. And rolling out to the side, extending the leg out, and switching sides, pulling our other leg back, and folding down to the ground. Taking deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Start to cool and calm that body down. Nice, even breaths. Nice, calm breathing. And rolling out to the side, extending that leg out, and sitting back up. The next stretch we're going to get into is going to be our lizard pose. So we're going to start out in a lunge here. So getting into that 90-degree position, scooting this front foot pretty far forward, and then dropping our hands, first starting with the inside arm, right? So we've got an outside arm that's planted down. The arm that's the same side as the foot will be the inside arm, starting with dropping that, trying to get that down to the floor next to our heel, and then both forearms down, sinking those hips lower and lower into the stretch. You can start scooting that knee out forward as well. Finding your positioning there with the hips. What feels good. Trying to get those forearms down to the ground. Nice big deep breaths. And bouncing back out, extending that leg out, bringing our other leg forward, lunging out, inside forearm down, and lowering down to the ground. Trying to sink those hips towards the heels. Nice big deep breaths. And extending back out, straightening that leg out. Next one we're going to get into is going to be our pigeon. So getting one shin forward, out in front of the body, out in front of the hips, and popping up onto that shin, and again lowering our forearms down, inching those toes further and further back, stretching through the outside of the hip, feeling that tension, releasing and relaxing. Nice deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And relaxing back, holding up, and switching sides. Bringing the opposite shin out in front. Extending the leg back, popping up, and stretching through the hip. Dropping the hips down to the shin. And sink those hips into the ground. Lowering the chest towards the shin. Big deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Feeling that tension, accepting it, realizing it's there, and telling the body to relax. Releasing the muscles with every exhale, getting deeper and deeper into the stretch. And coming back up, extending both legs out forward, placing our hands on the shins and lowering our hands down the shins, stretching into the hamstrings, grabbing the ankles, grabbing the shin so we can anchor ourselves into the tense position. Finding our tension and relaxing, accepting it, releasing it, trying to reach further and further into that tension. Nice, big relaxing breaths. Breathing in through the stomach, all the way down into the hips, and exhaling out to the top of the shoulders. And relaxing out of the stretch. All right. Awesome job, you guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate you hopping in. I hope you enjoyed the class. It's definitely a good exercise for me to do in the middle of the day. So I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Quinn. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. No, both of you.